Welcome to the High Rise Podcast, presented by Headset, the leading data and analytics company for the cannabis industry.
Welcome back to the High Rise, a laid-back, data-back conversation where we talk all things cannabis, from U.S. MSOs to Canadian LPs, products, and market analysis through the lens of data. My name is Cy Scott with Headset, and I'm joined as always by Emily Paxia of Poseidon.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the High Rise.
And as you can tell by the noise in the background, we have a very special poolside session here in Miami at Benzinga with a very special guest, Karson Humiston, CEO and founder of Vangst. Thanks for joining us, Karson.
Thanks so much for having me. It's great to be sitting on the beach with you guys in Miami.
There are worse places. You know, I was thinking today before this recording that our first poolside session, we almost had you. We almost had Karson, but I don't think it happened.
She got too busy.
Too busy. But you were by the pool in Ojai.
I was sitting across the way.
Yeah.
That's right.
But you guys were in the shade and I was working on my tan.
That's right.
I mean,
That's fair.
It was just the timing didn't work out.
It wouldn't have worked out. Yeah.
But here we are now.
But we got you here now.
Yeah,
That's
it's so
right.
good to be here.
I know.
And a fun fact about Karson and I is that we're both from the Buffalo area.
The Buff.
Yes. And not to be...
and not to bring it up, but now we have a team in the Buff. So Vangst is in the Buff.
What?
Yep.
Okay, that's exciting.
And in case anyone else is looking for a team in the Buff, you can get an office for $500 a month. So
wow.
Not to promote the Buff, but the rent's a little bit cheaper than Denver and LA.
Your money goes a lot further there.
Yeah, the Buff.
The Buff. And we know Jamie Mendola's from the Buff.
Mm-hmm.
Morgan's obviously there too. But anyway, we're so excited to talk with you today because you sit at a really interesting intersection of our industry, getting to witness the growth of employment, which is one of the things we all talk about as a main proving ground for the quality of this industry. So why don't you share with the listeners about Vangst?
Yeah, Vangst is the cannabis industry's hiring platform, and we help people find great jobs in the space, whether they're looking for a full-time job or a temporary gig. Of course, this industry has quite a bit of seasonality within it, given it's a agricultural, manufacturing, retail space. So Vangst Gigs, which is our number one product, we send our customers vetted, on-demand, badged, ready-to-go employees. Every single state has different rules and regulation around employment, different badges. So if you're in Colorado, you go through the Marijuana Enforcement Division and you get a med badge. We help our customers get connected on demand with those badged, ready-to-go workers. So we work with 1,200 customers around the U.S. We work with 80% of the largest multi-state operators. They have all their jobs on Vangst.com. Right now, if you go to Vangst.com, there's about 2,500 open jobs that have been posted in the last 30 days.
2,500?
2,500.
Wow.
So and that's in the last 30 days. And so we see a lot around what companies are doing and what they're hiring for. And, there's a lot of really interesting data that I'm sure we'll get into on the data podcast.
Very cool. That's interesting about the open recs. So many of them. We were just had the privilege to talk with Congressman Nancy Mace yesterday, and she mentioned the Amazon support, and it's about jobs, right? It's about getting people into jobs because they can't fill those jobs. How has it been with 2,500 open recs? Are they getting filled? A lot of people are interested in this category coming into cannabis. So are they posted and gone pretty quick, or do they take some time?
Yeah, so the industry, similar to every industry, it's challenging to attract and retain talent right now. I will say that, and this is a little bit anecdotal, that it doesn't seem like it's been as hard for this industry to recruit. I think people are very excited about getting jobs in cannabis. But what I will say is for hourly positions, somebody that's thinking about making $15 an hour and they're excited about cannabis, if someone offers them a job outside of cannabis for $16 an hour, as excited as they are about cannabis, they're going to take the dollar more per hour because It's just expensive to live and people don't care that much about working in cannabis. So on the hourly roles, we've seen it more challenging to fill jobs than on the senior level roles. So yeah.
Makes sense.
As we're watching these new markets open up, are you guys getting in there? Like you mentioned Buffalo. We're watching for New York to get ready to open up. Are you getting in there early and ahead of time to try to start helping to inform the population about what it looks like to be employed in cannabis? Tell us about the work you all do.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're launching training. And so right now we have a Cannabis Retail 101, Cannabis Cultivation 101, Lab and Manufacturing is coming. And so people that are in new markets that might think, I work in retail right now, but I want to go into cannabis. I can go to Vangst, I can take Cannabis Retail, start getting information about what it means to work in the cannabis space. The number one thing that people are asking for when they come to Vangst outside of jobs is training and education. And really what they're looking for at the highest level is just 101s, information. I think it's so second nature to the three of us. We've been sitting here talking about this for 5 years, but like people in New York are like, I want to work in cannabis retail. Where do I start? Like, what are the rules? How do I speak about selling cannabis in a way that I'm not giving medical advice to the customers coming through? How do I speak about different brands? I want to work. I've been a tomato farmer and I want to go into cannabis cultivation. I need to know the nutrients and the lighting and the soil, like just basic things. People are craving for that information right now. And so we don't have jobs for people right now, but what we can do is we can start giving them this information and the skills around these are the types of jobs you could do. Here's some, you can take some of our courses to stand out from the other people that are going to really want these jobs, and then the jobs become available and we'll have a supply of workers ready to go. We're also working and speaking to, working with various state agencies to help with the badging process, which we can get into, but in some states it's a nightmare. In Massachusetts, it costs $600 for an employee to get a badge to work in the cannabis industry and can take up to 8 weeks. The whole point of this industry is to create jobs and help people get jobs. And if you're going to tell someone that makes $15 an hour, they have to pay $600 to get a badge, like they're going to go work at Kentucky Fried Chicken or Arby's or some other hourly restaurant where they don't have to get a badge and pay $600. So we're trying to help inform new states of we need to be doing everything we can to help people easily get a job and a badge. So those are the kind of things we're doing in new markets.
That is incredibly important because those barriers are just ways that we're struggling to attract talent into the sector. So
you can't make it harder for people to get a job.
Yeah.
You need to make it easier for people to get a job. And it's the badging process is varies on the state-by-state level. In a place like Arizona, you have to have 2 separate fingerprints. I mean, we bought a Mercedes Sprinter van and wrapped it in cannabis is hiring, and we're taking it to Arizona, to Snowflake, Arizona, and are getting people on this van to get these 2 sets of fingerprints to try to help Copper State hire workers. And that's just literally the kind of ideas that everybody's throwing out and around there of just this is crazy. It's too hard to get employees to work. So we want to work with the state agencies earlier to help them figure out what's the best way to badge and license employees to make it as attractive as possible for people to come work in cannabis.
You raise a really good point about the geography of where a lot of these facilities are located. One of my biggest points of pride of investing in cannabis and in these operators is that you see that they're turning facilities that had been shuttered for, in some cases, decades, or towns that had kind of been left behind by people shifting into the larger city centers. And now these are sources of employment for these places where it's been kind of facing a mini recession for maybe even a couple decades. And so I think, what do you think about that? What do you see when you go into those towns and setting up infrastructure around finding people?
No, it's incredible. And the towns are so happy and great. Well, oftentimes the towns are very happy, grateful, and excited to have a cultivation facility which could potentially employ 1,000 people, right? I mean, that's amazing. However, that being said, it is a challenge to find talent in these remote areas. And so we're the example I just gave. I mean, these towns sometimes are only a couple thousand people, and so there's just simply not enough people in the towns. And so we're seeing customers do things in Colorado, as an example, Pueblo is a big area where there's a lot of cultivation facilities. Colorado Springs is maybe an hour and a half. So people are doing buses where they'll pick people up from Colorado Springs, bus them out to Pueblo, and then bus them back. And for us, for Vangst gigs, I mean, we have to fill all these gigs during Croptober in Pueblo. There's not enough people in the town of Pueblo. So it's an opportunity for these towns, but it's also a challenge in just that there's not enough people to fill the jobs. But to your point, I think that overall it's a positive to bring jobs anywhere.
It is, and just by the nature of this industry, you cannot offshore them.
You cannot offshore
even
them.
out of state them.
No, you can't out of state them. They one of the good things about the badge is that it requires people to be a resident in the state. It's a good way to keep track of how many employees are working in the space. There's a lot of positives that come with the badging and the licensing. It just needs to be more efficient, but it's a great way to create jobs in your state.
Since jobs are so important, are the states being receptive to some of these conversations about limiting some of those restrictions when you've brought it up, or is it not happening?
No, it's challenging to work. What I've found is, as entrepreneurs, we're all impatient.
Mm-hmm.
And so working with the government has been it's been the slowest thing. You have a conversation, let's have another conversation in 2 months. Let's have another conversation. Go to this person. This person left the state agency, so meet a new person and take it from the top. So I think we're probably going to have to hire a lobbyist and just joined NCR, National Cannabis Roundtable, and we're working closely with them on some of these. But like, I don't think that my tactic right now is going amazing. So any of the listeners out there, if you think you can help us break through these conversations, it's hard working with the government.
It is.
So this week it's 420. It was 420 yesterday, and that's a big day for sales.
High volume day.
High volume. So what does that look like from like a gigs perspective? Do you find that organizations are staffing up in preparation for production all the way through retail?
Yeah, we had our biggest gigs week of the year last week. Just customers needing, mostly on the people on the retail side, needing retail staff. So yeah, I mean, it's people are staffing up, and kind of how the industry cycles are. It's like after 420, people continue to ramp up through the fall, through Croptober, through really into December. December, January, and February are always lower on the staffing side. So that just seems to follow the sales cycle within the industry. But we've now seen it 4 years in a row of peak levels in the summer and fall, then tapers down in the winter, and then starts to pick back up again at around 420.
It's really cool that Vangst has been around long enough now to have some real seasonality data to really be able to identify when those trends will happen. And I'm sure it's great for your team to know when you need to scale up and how you need to scale up. You can expect it.
Yeah, we're starting to be able to expect it, and it'll be good for even just for projecting, right? I mean, it's just this industry is so new, so people didn't know. Hey, we know that in the fall it's our busiest time, so we really need to be doing a lot more B2C marketing to acquire candidates to make sure we have enough workers to work these jobs, versus we can tone our B2C marketing spend down in Q1 because there's less gigs. Like that kind of information, like you just don't have in this industry because nobody knew, and we're still learning, but we're starting to be able to see the patterns and being able to plan around it.
Makes sense.
Yeah. And so one of the other things that I thought was really cool was we had Dustin on from Embark, and they were talking about their event at Outside Lands. And a recurring theme on the podcast is that we talk about how cannabis is integrated into these other events in our lives. It's not just living in a silo. So you participated in that process. Do you mind sharing about it?
Yeah, we staffed the entire Embark's entire sector of Outside Lands. It was awesome event. I mean, we had close to 100 gig bud tenders, so on-demand bud tenders that went, and they were helping sell product and helping run the entire event. And everyone that these were local bud tenders in and around San Francisco that wanted to pick up a weekend gig and go and work Outside Lands. I think it was like the all-time coolest gig ever. Our team went out. I remember, Emily, you saw some of them. I didn't get to go. I hope that I'll be able to go this year. But yeah, it was amazing.
I know. I got to tour kind of the back end of it, which was because I've known Dustin for a while, and it was really impressive to see the infrastructure around how they had to make sure, because it was kind of a demo experience. Grasslands at Outside Lands has existed for a couple of years now. It first started where it was more you could see brands and products, but you could not consume. And then the last couple of years, well, it didn't exist during the pandemic, obviously, but now it's back. And so you could consume on site. They had different acts up there. It was so cool. But what they went through, and the regulators were almost on site the whole weekend because they were watching this like a hawk. And we talk about this a lot too, is this industry has to be better and above and beyond what anyone would hope for, so we can make a case for why we get to stay.
Everything has to be best in class. And I mean, that was the same on everything we were talking about vetting and badges and all the compliance steps. I mean, we had to go through a lot of hoops to make sure that all of these staff were trained, had the right credentials, were compliant to sell cannabis. I mean, it wasn't just like find 80 people or 80 to 100 people off like the side of the streets, So there's a lot of work that went into it, but we were really proud with the outcome. And I think everybody, as a result, all the attendees were able to enjoy an amazing experience and purchase and consume cannabis. So It was all around amazing.
It was a great experience, and the people working there seemed really excited. And I actually thought about trying to remember. I was like, "Can I sign up to be a budtender?"
Yeah, Emily was like, "I'm gonna be a gigster."
Yeah, I wanted to be a gigster, but it was a really great experience. And I think that having platforms like Vangst is what makes it possible. So, great work.
Very cool. So how's the conference been for
The
you?
conference has been great. I mean, I think partially everyone's just so happy to see each other, and it really feels like COVID is over being here. I don't know if it's just because we're in Florida, but it is great. And I thought the quality of the attendees was very high. I mean, you're walking around and we were meeting with so many of our customers, like the CEOs and founders of the customers, so many of our investors, so many new companies that are recently licensed that are just getting up and running. So I had a great time, and our team, a couple people from our team came out here. They told me it was one of the best events they've ever been to.
It really is packed with it's a high concentration of industry leaders, and everybody's right here. It's interesting, when we're in Vegas in the fall, it's so massive. We're all everywhere. But we're here. So it's really been remarkable, the concentration of people I've had a chance to meet with and see, and some of whom I've never seen before, actually.
Yeah, you're walking through from the time I went from I'm on my hotel room's on floor 11. By the time I got to the lobby, 3 different people had gotten on the elevator that work in the cannabis industry. So, and you can recognize because they've got their badge on, and so it's just like every single place you go, whether you're getting a cup of coffee or just walking to your room, you're seeing people. So I love that. I think the concentrated events, everyone all in one place, it's great.
Great stuff.
So where can everyone find Vangst online?
Vangst.com.
Easy.
Easy. Vangst.com. I'm
easy.
trying to get my Twitter following. I'm trying to get some Twitter clout. I've been stuck at like 1,000 followers for 10 years. So if you want to follow Karson, I've been doing some tweets.
She's a capital tweeter, everybody. So get on there.
Get on it.
Follow her. I retweet her occasionally. I'll be doing it more.
Thank you so much. I retweet Emily all the time.
Yeah. Well, we're in contact. So, and this will be coming out shortly. So
Yeah, love it. Thanks so much for joining.
Thank you guys for having me.
Thanks for listening to the High Rise Podcast, presented by Headset. For more information on Headset, visit headset.io.